Well, Marcus, I think a couple of things that I want to respond to that question is one is I think the church doesn't realize and understand that extreme poverty is actually going down globally. In the last 30 to 50 years, it's been made significant improvements in both extreme poverty and even low-level poverty. The last couple of years with COVID and global pandemic, it's probably upticked a bit, but generally the patterns and the direction has been positive, and that's because people are actually choosing specific initiatives. They're doing research, they're figuring out what works, and they're doing those interventions that help people. And so one of the areas that I would just mention is children under 5 dying from preventable causes. And there's been good news even in that front in the last couple of weeks where they've created the malaria vaccine, which they believe will help reduce malaria deaths, which kills tens of thousands of children every year under the age of 5, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. But let me just give a story from when I was in college. In 1990, I was in college and I wore a pin that said 40,000, like a Ghostbuster pin where it had 40,000 and like it was supposed to say I'm against 40,000. And you're supposed to wear the pin and people are supposed to ask you, why are you wearing that pin? What does that mean? And you'd say, well, today 40,000 children died from preventable causes around the world. Do you care about this, right? And not until I did research and a PhD and started studying poverty that I realized that pin was a little bit dated. It was probably 33,000 kids were dying, and it was probably 5 to 7 years earlier that it was 40,000, and an improvement had already happened by 1990. But from 1990, when it was about 33,000 to today, it's about 15,000 kids dying a day. Now, I hope Christians will never be settled till that number gets to 0. But the reality is to cut in half from 33,000 kids a day, and that's per day, right? So times that by 365 days a year, times however many years it's been going on, that's numbers of children that are living. And I don't think the church in the U.S. understands or knows the power that that represents, and that if churches understood it, celebrated it, embraced it, and said, what do we do to get to 0? Like, how can we get to 0 in extreme poverty? I think that would make a tremendous difference. So I think that's one of the key elements that I think is a myth or a misunderstanding, is that global poverty is just terrible and it's going to just keep getting worse. That's not true. And there are methods and approaches that we can take to help alleviate poverty, and the church should be at the forefront, I believe, of doing that if we care about the lives of people all around the world.